should be the last video to close out this pre-calc prerequisite review. Absolute value here. Just like we were talking about before, there's multiplication we got to get rid of here. So you're going to have to divide by 2 to both sides. All right, without getting into the specifics and just kind of trying to revive your memories here. An absolute value means distance from 0 on a number line. Well, if you think about a distance from 0, here's 0, here's -2, and here's 2. There are 2 spots. We have a distance from 0. That's 2. So that idea holds with these absolute values. The idea is that we're going to have 2 possible places on the number line, +2 or -2. The explanation gets a little bit more difficult when you put in a binomial here, but the idea is the same. So what we're going to do here is we're going to split and think about it as positive and negative. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, x minus 3, this guy in here could be +6, or this thing in here could be -6. Because if -6 was in there, the absolute value of -6 would be +6. Okay? So then x equals 9, or x equals x plus 3 equals -3. Okay, so adding 3. So really, when we plug both of these in, they both work out to be correct solutions here when you plug them back in. All right, so absolute value is going to get you 2 solutions. All right, so we're going to subtract 4 on this one, showing my work here of the opposite of the absolute value of 3x plus 5, and that's going to equal 1. Well, when I divide both sides by -1, because we don't want that negative out there, what we're going to get is we're going to get the absolute value of 3x plus 5 is equal to -1. And what are you thinking right now? You're thinking, well, here's the deal. Let me make it easy for you. Okay, I'm going to try to take this and kind of just highlight it. Whatever this is in green right there, no matter what green comes out to, whether it be positive or negative, when you take the absolute value of it, it will be a positive number. Okay, well, this is a negative number over here. So what we're saying is that's impossible. That cannot happen. So there's no solution to this problem. All right, moving along here, solving by the factoring method and by the quadratic formula. If you hear my son in the background, I told him to be quiet, and he just yelled out, "We're being quiet." So here we go. Okay, so solve by factoring method and the quadratic formula. Factoring method here. Well, it is a quadratic, and this is just a quick review, so I'm not going to get into too much of it here. But you got to get one side equal to 0, which we have here. So if I do the factoring method, there is no JCF, but I'm going to try to find 2 factors that work. So I'm going to have an x and an x. Again, like we said before, 1 minus and 1 plus whenever this last term is negative. And obviously I've done a lot of these, so I can say, oh, -6 plus 2 would work out. Well, I do have to take a moment to teach it here. Something times something is 0. If something times something is 0, the logical conclusion is that one of these 2 guys has to be 0. So that's where we get our split. So we get x minus 6 equals 0, or another logical conclusion is that x plus 2 equals 0. So I'm going to get x equals 6 and x equals -2. All right, so 2 possible answers to this problem. Well, the quadratic formula is just another way of getting that. So I guess it would make sense for us to review that. I'm not going to sing the obnoxious song, but x equals the opposite of b, plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so there it is. I said I wouldn't, but I did. Okay, so here we go. So x is equal to, well, you got to look back at the original problem here. ax squared plus bx plus c. So the a comes from the first, the b comes from the second, and the c comes from the third term. A is actually, sorry, my son here is interrupting with a little loud, complaining about something, who knows. All right, so I'm not stopping and re-recording. We're going to deal. A is actually the 1 here. Okay, so just so we know, A is equal to 1, B would be equal to -4, and then C would be equal to -12. So the opposite of B is actually just the number 4, plus or minus square root b squared, so that's going to give me +16, minus 4 times a value of 1 times c of negative 12. Now what I just did in there is the discriminant. Everything under that radical is called the discriminant. I hope you get that term down. That's where most mistakes are made with these. Then we have 2a, which would just be 2 in this case. All right, so running through the math, you're going to see how this is going to come out nicely. Now, there shouldn't be a shocker that this is going to come out nicely. You should know that we're going to come out to 6 and negative 2. Connect the math here. You're doing the same problem with a different method. So it's going to come out to the same answer, either way you do it. All right, so watch this work out really well. 4 plus or minus, and then if we do 16 minus 4, 1, negative 2, that's really a plus. Okay, so what is that a plus? That's really 16 plus, and it's actually 4 times 12, so that's 16 plus 48, all over 2. Well, if you know what 16 plus 48 is, what would that be? That would be, plus 20 would be 64. Well, that means the square root of 64 is coming out to 8. So 4 plus or minus the square root of 64, which is just 8 over 2. So then here we go. We have 4 plus 8, which is 12 divided by 2. We're going to get 6. 4 minus 8, negative 4 divided by 2. We're going to get negative 2. So we're getting the exact same answers, which should have happened. Okay? So that was really, you know, kind of like, why would we ever do this when we could just do the factoring? Well, here we go, and here's our answer to that. Hopefully when you're connecting this is going to be a parabola, just so you know, and those answers are going to be, you know, the x-intercepts on that graph. But obviously a parabola isn't always going to cross at a nice, neat point like 6 and negative 2. It could cross at a funky point. Well, if it crosses at a funky point, we can't factor. And here we are. So x squared minus 4x, you actually have to have minus 2 equals 0. That's the first thing we do is get everything to one side. Well, it doesn't take long to try to factor here to realize that we can't, because the factors of 2, and we can try it here and show you. All right, we're going to have a minus and we're going to have a plus. But the factors of 2 are like 2 and 1. So there's no way we're going to be able to factor and get to 4. It's just not going to happen. I can switch the 2 and the 1 around. It's not going to change anything. So we can't factor. That doesn't mean necessarily you can't do the problem. So if we're looking at this, we're going to have to try to do it by the quadratic formula. A equals 1, B equals negative 4, and then C, very careful, equals negative 2. Not positive 2, but negative 2 from when we subtracted it. All right, so here we go. X equals negative B. So that's going to be 4 plus or minus square root B squared. So we're going to get our 16 here, minus 4 times 1, and then times C, which is negative 2, all over 2a, which again is just going to be 2. All right, well, here's the deal. If you look at our discriminant again that we were talking about before, this is plus or minus, and this is going to be 16. It's actually going to be plus 8, so that's going to come out to 24. Well, like we just talked about, if you can't factor, then it's not going to come out to a nice, neat answer, right? So if we can't factor, we should know that this is going to be something that's not a perfect square. So we do need to simplify our answer, though, and we're going to have 4 plus or minus, and we all know how to simplify the radical and make it 2 root 6 all over 2. But this still isn't far enough because we have even numbers here. Now be careful. You can take a number out as long as it goes into all parts. Okay, so this is what I love to do. I'm going to go off to the side here real quick. If I had 2 plus 4 over 2. I'm just gonna make this up right now, okay, in this box. I'm going off on a tangent here. I think you would all, if somebody came in and said, I'll give you $1 million to get this problem correct, I think most of you would say 3, right? You'd say 2 plus 4 is 6 divided by 2, give me my $1 million. Well, this is what some of you like to do. You like to go, oh, I want to just cancel these 2 out and make them 1s. And that's it. Well, you can't, because as you can see, now the problem would be 1 plus 4 over 1. It would be 5. You can't change the problem. It wouldn't work. But if I would have said, wait a minute, let's take a 2 out of that as well. So I took a 2 out of everything. Now the answer is back to 3, which is what the answer is. So why do I say that? Well, you can't just do this. You can't just make it 2 over 1. You have to also take a 2 out of there and make that a 1. So the answer to this problem over here is actually 2 plus or minus just the square root of 6, or 1 root 6, all over 1. Well, obviously, we can see here that we don't have to write that one. There's 2 answers right there. 2 plus root 6, 2 minus root 6. All right, so if we were to graph this like this, if we were to graph it, it's actually going to be a parabola that crosses at two ugly points. Okay? All right, so not to go too in depth with that, but there's just a refresher. Hopefully it helped. If you watched this whole video, that would make you kind of feel like this as far as prereq skills, I would think. I hope that's you. I can't draw a thumbs up, but I hope you are understanding this, and if not, make sure you ask us, and good luck this year.